Episode 9 of The Bad Batch is titled Bounty Lost, and I was very surprised to see it as a direct follow-up to last week's episode. I honestly assumed that it was going to transition over to The Bad Batch, going to meet with Sid to figure out how to find Cad Bane, but it wasn't that at all. Most of the focus was actually on Omega and her attempt to get away from Bane, and it hit right on the mark for me. I thought this episode was fantastic, and they just keep getting better every week. I love that the episode opened directly after the events of last week with the Bad Batch trying to get away from Crosshair, but also while trying to locate Omega, giving us a great two-part episode feel. But I must say, Omega stole the show for me this week. Only because we learned so much more about her, with some included twists that made my jaw drop to the floor. Especially with Cad Bane's call to Lama Su, informing him that he has the girl still alive, so he expects his unmarked credits. And that's when things get wild. Nala Se says that she will take the payment and retrieve Omega, but Lama Su suggests that Taun We be the one to retrieve Omega, since Nala Se's personal feelings have gotten in the way of their operation too many times. But that's not even the worst part. Lama Su states that once Omega is retrieved, Nala Se should get the genetic material needed from Omega and then terminate her. I was left stunned. This whole time, the Kaminoans were so concerned about wanting to get Omega back without the entire Empire knowing, but now they just want to kill her. I'm absolutely shocked and blown away. It's just crazy, especially since they keep talking about their contingency plan, which I think everyone has caught on by now. This contingency plan is most likely the Kaminoan uprising, where in Legends they created a new clone army to go up against the Empire. But why do they need Omega for this? Well, we soon realize that it's because of how she was cloned. We were all coming up with theories as to who she was. Was she just a clone of Jango Fett? Was she Force sensitive? Was she a clone of Palpatine? But as it turns out, Omega is a pure genetic replication of Jango Fett. So she's basically Boba's sister, which is crazy since we learned that Boba was referred to as Alpha. So now we have Alpha and Omega, and I think it's absolutely cool. The surprises don't stop there though, as Cad Bane comes into the rendezvous point to meet with Taun We. The rendezvous point is a new planet and a new system that is referred to as Bora Vio, which is an abandoned cloning facility, and I have so many questions about it. Bora Vio closely resembles Kamino, but it's more like Bespin, with all of the facilities just floating amongst the clouds. It's even creepier that they have cloning tubes just sitting there with beings still inside of them, including one cloned Kaminoan, which makes me wonder what this facility was used for originally. You can't see much about the tubes, but each one of them has a different being inside of it, much like the cloning facility that we got from the episode of The Mandalorian with all of the disfigured clones. So I wonder if at some point this facility was just a prototype, meant to perfect the art of cloning before moving into mass production on Kamino. During Omega's attempt to escape, she ends up getting captured by Cad Bane, only to be stopped by none other than Fennec Shand, giving us one hell of a fight between two of the most notorious bounty hunters in Star Wars history. It does seem like Fennec gets the upper hand on Bane though and is able to get away, but not with Omega, because as it turns out, Fennec Shand was hired separately again by Nala Se to ensure that Omega is kept safe and out of Lama Su's hands. She really wants Omega kept alive, but for what reason, I'm not sure. But it's turning into quite the ride. We now have Lama Su, who's hired Cad Bane to retrieve Omega so they can kill her later on. We have Nala Se, who's personally hired Fennec Shand to ensure that Omega is just kept alive and away from Kamino. And then the Bad Batch, who currently have Omega and are struggling to make sure they can keep her safe and also away from Kamino, while trying to dodge Crosshair and the entirety of the Empire at every turn. It's a lot to take in, and a lot more to think about what's going to happen when the show comes to an end. But that's everything I have to say on this episode of The Bad Batch. What were your thoughts on Bounty Lost? Did you like seeing Cad Bane get more screen time in this episode? Were you also shocked to find out that Lama Su wants Omega dead? And what do you think Nala Se wants with Omega? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, and remember, the Force will be with you. Always.